RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
The state of Indiana is going to play a pivotal role in this election.
You love Indiana, right? The Hoosiers, the Hoosiers.
There you hear it directly from the candidates. Indiana set to play a critical role in deciding the Republican nomination for president, and the candidates are swarming the Hoosier state looking for votes. Thank you so much for joining us on Indianapolis This Week. The end of one crazy week and the start of what's going to be an even crazier one, with the focus on the race for the White House shifting squarely to Indiana. The Republican presidential candidates have started to make stops in the Hoosier state, including Senator Ted Cruz. He spent Thursday in Indianapolis courting support after being mathematically eliminated this week from winning enough delegates to get the nomination on the first ballot. Now Cruz needs to win Indiana to stop Donald Trump and force a contested convention. That's one of the questions he discussed one-on-one with our own Katie Hines.
Coming off of a defeat in New York, many would argue that you need to win Indiana. What's your strategy for doing that?
Well, Indiana is going to be absolutely critical, and I'll tell you, the whole country's eyes are on Indiana. And the people of Indiana are going to make a choice. Going to make a choice about the direction of the Republican Party and the direction of the country. And what we're seeing happening nationwide is we're seeing Republicans uniting behind our campaign. And I'll tell you, part of the reason is that 65 to 70% of Republicans nationally get that if we nominate Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton wins. She wins by double digits. It is a bloodbath. On the other hand, if I'm the nominee, we beat Hillary Clinton. We beat her in key swing states. We beat her with independents. We beat her with young people. And so we're seeing a spirit of unity. We're seeing Republicans come together. You know, of the 17 Republican candidates who started this race, 5 are supporting our campaign. Rick Perry, Lindsey Graham, Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, and Carly Fiorina. That runs the full gamut of the ideological spectrum of the Republican Party, and we're seeing Republicans come together behind a positive, optimistic, forward-looking, conservative agenda to bring jobs back to America, to protect our freedom, and to keep America safe and secure.
Here in Indiana, Carrier's decision to move jobs and its operations to Mexico is on the top of minds of many.
Sure.
Is there a way to keep companies like Carrier here in the U.S., and if so, what is it?
Absolutely, yes. My #1 priority as president will be jobs and economic growth. Keeping jobs like the Carrier jobs here in America, bringing more jobs to America, and raising wages. Now, how do you do that? Well, you know, both JFK and Ronald Reagan understood the key to economic growth is cutting taxes and pulling back regulations, that it is small businesses that generate 2/3 of all the new jobs. If I'm elected president, we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We'll pass a simple flat tax and abolish the IRS. We will rein in the regulators, including the federal regulators that are driving Carrier away, that are taking away those jobs, including the EPA regulators that are killing the coal industry here in the state of Indiana. And we will stop amnesty and end sanctuary cities. And the effect of all of that is that we're going to see millions and millions of new high-paying jobs. We're going to see jobs coming back from China, coming back from Mexico, manufacturing jobs coming back to Indiana. And we're going to see wages rising again for hard-working men and women. We're going to see young people coming out of school filled once again with hopes and dreams and with 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. That's what this election is all about, and it's why so many Republicans, so many Americans are uniting behind our campaign.
The company's leaders cited hundreds of federal regulations as their reason to move. Are there any specifically that you see as problematic?
Well, Obamacare is the single biggest job killer in America. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs, have been forced into part-time work, have lost their health care and their doctors. You know, millions of Americans have seen their health insurance premiums skyrocket. Just today, I visited Shapiro's, a local deli. A woman there said, "Ted, I've got 6 kids. You've got to stop Obamacare." She said, "My health insurance premiums have doubled under Obamacare. People are hurting." You know, beyond that, you look at Carrier, the Department of Energy has issued 250 new rules and regulations. About 50 of those apply directly to Carrier, making it harder and harder and harder for them to survive. And let me tell you this, if I'm elected president in 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to see other countries complaining about corporate inversions because their companies are going to be leaving their countries and coming to America because it's going to be such a good and positive and terrific place to do business. That's what we need to do. JFK understood it, Ronald Reagan understood it, and I understand it. You get Washington off our backs, And the American free enterprise system is the most powerful, productive force the world has ever known.
Senator, you expressed support for Indiana's Religious Freedom Act.
Yes.
What is at stake in the debate between balancing religious liberty and civil rights for the LGBT community?
Well, listen, religious liberty is a foundational principle of our country. You look at the history of America. We were founded by people who were fleeing religious oppression and coming to a land, seeking out a land where any one of us could worship the Lord God Almighty with all of our heart, mind, and soul, without government getting in the way. Religious liberty is the very first liberty protected in the first clause of the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. It's foundational to everything else. And religious liberty protects everyone. It protects Jews, it protects Christians, it protects Muslims, it protects atheists. What it means is that you and I, we can live according to our faith, we can live according to our conscience. That is a liberty that used to be a bipartisan commitment. You know, a couple of decades ago, the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act passed Congress virtually unanimously. A Democrat, Bill Clinton, signed it into law. Unfortunately, in recent years, the modern Democratic Party has gotten so extreme, so politicized, they've decided religious liberty is no longer compatible with their partisan political objectives. I think that doesn't make sense. I think that is extreme, and we should be able to protect religious liberty for everyone. And let me give you one final example. The Obama administration right now is litigating against the Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic charity of nuns who devote their lives to caring for the poor and the elderly. And they're trying to impose millions of dollars of fines on the nuns under Obamacare in order to try to force the sisters to pay for abortion-inducing drugs and others. Now, I've joked a lot of times. A really good rule of thumb is if you're litigating against nuns, you've probably done something wrong. That shows just how extreme Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the modern Democratic Party is. If I'm elected president on the very first day in office, I will direct every federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends today.
And coming up, Donald Trump rolls into the Hoosier State talking carrier, taxes, and the wall. And we get insight into John Kasich getting ready for his first trip to Indiana. You're watching Indianapolis This Week only on RTV6. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. Get ready to see plenty of Donald Trump here in Indiana. The frontrunner was in town on Wednesday, talking to roughly 2,000 people at the state fairgrounds. He's promised to make several visits here in an all-out effort to win all of the state's 57 Republican delegates. Here's what he had to say about Indiana, carrier, and his Hoosier supporters.
Thank you, Indiana. You love Indiana, right? The Hoosiers, the Hoosiers. Today, I'm supposed to be here in 2 weeks, you know that, but I had to come early. I came early. I said, what are we doing? Let's go to Indiana. It's true. Actually, that's a true story. He's doing a great job. You have a governor, Governor Pence, who's really fighting hard for you. All right, get him out. Boy, these protesters aren't very tough around here. That's good. I don't know. I'm a little disappointed at Indiana. I said, get him out, and he walks out. That's pretty easy. I think I have a lot of votes in this room. Do I have everybody's? You know, we're going to bring our country back, folks. We're going to have strong borders. We're going to build a wall. And, you know, when Carrier, that left here, goes to Mexico, and they want to sell their product across the border, and no tax, no nothing, we're going to say, sorry, folks, we have a nice, strong border, we have a nice, beautiful wall. You're going to bring it across the border, and we're going to charge you a 35% tax after what you did. It's no good. Carrier fired the 1,400 people. Are any of those people in the audience? You got to be kidding. You were both fired. How long did you work there? 26 years. You look like you're 26 years old. And 26 years, 17 years. All right. Well, you tell me if I'm right. So they get fired rather ruthlessly by somebody that looked like he was upper mid-level management. And somebody had their cell phone going. And most of you saw the deal. And I thought it was terrible. I was sitting home, I'm watching the news, and I see 1,400 people get fired from Carrier. And the man said, we're going to Mexico. Essentially, you're fired. You know, I did well with that, you're fired. I bought a lot of Carrier air conditioners over my life. And by the way, I'm not buying any more if you don't mind. Okay, no more. If you look at what's happened to your coal industry, folks, we're going to bring it back, okay? We're going to bring it back, clean coal. We're going to bring steel back to Indiana. Big league. Big league. In Indianapolis, where you're going to have a good football team this year, by the way, in Indianapolis, Indiana, you're going to remember this beautiful afternoon in Indiana, and you're going to say you had a good time, but more importantly, in a couple of weeks, when it comes time for Indiana to vote, you're going to go out and vote, and you're going to look back at that vote, and you're going to say that that was the single greatest and most important vote that you've ever cast. Go out and vote. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I love you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And now to John Kasich, who will also carry his campaign into Indiana. His first visit set for this coming Tuesday. Kasich's going to host a town hall in Noblesville at the Hamilton County Fairgrounds. Doors are set to open at 10 in the morning. Kasich's scheduled to start speaking at 11. Rafael Sanchez is with one of the co-chairs of his Indiana campaign, Carmel Mayor Jim Brainerd.
But can he win Indiana?
Yes, I believe he can win Indiana. You know, the bottom line is that no one has obtained the 1,200 and some votes that are necessary to win in the first round of the convention. So I think the convention will be very important this year, and Republicans need to ask themselves two questions. Number one, who can beat the Democratic candidate, whoever that is? And number two, is it a person who can govern and make our country better?
He'll be in Hamilton County on Tuesday.
Yes.
What will he have to tell voters? What will be his pitch to the voters of Indiana that will convince them that he is, among the three, the one that they should vote for?
Well, first of all, if we look at polling information from across the country, he's leading the leading Democratic candidate by about 10 points. And he's the only candidate of the three left in the Republican race that is leading the Democratic contenders in national polling. And then if you bear down a little harder and look at the key states, Ohio and Florida, and some of the others, he's the only candidate. New Hampshire, I think, is important. A poll just came out last night that showed he's up by 12 points against Mrs. Clinton in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire has been a bellwether state.
But he's only won Ohio, system. Right? You know that. He's only won his home state. He won the city of Manhattan, beating Donald Trump there, but he's not won any other big states. So is he viable?
Yes, I think he's viable. There's a totally different pool of voters in the general election there as the Republican Party. And unfortunately, a majority of Republicans aren't voting in many of the primaries. Some states have caucuses, they have their rules, but the rules say that you know, if no one goes to the convention in Cleveland with 1,200, I think 37 votes, then the convention decides. And those convention delegates need to ask who can beat the Democratic contender and who can then govern. And I think Governor Kasich has a great experience at governing. He's served in the Congress for 18 years. He knows how it works. He knows how to work with the executive branch. He's been head of the Armed Services Committee. That's tremendously important because one of the primary functions of the federal government is to keep our country safe. He understands, he's talked a lot about block grants, how to give resources back to states and cities. And as a mayor, I understand that. It's one of the best. It was basically a Nixon revenue sharing program. And those programs still work very well for our country. He understands that the less bureaucracy and the less money we spend in Washington, the more we can do with our economy. He understands the imbalance of trade we have using fuel from other countries. And so I agree with him with that point on our energy usage. I think he has a very good program. And what I like about him as much as anything, he talks about ideas. He's an idea guy. He's not beating up on his opponents. He's focused on ideas and how to move the country ahead. And that's the sort of quality we need in a president of the United States.
His opponents have called him a spoiler. They're asking him to drop out because In the case of Mr. Cruz, who was in Indiana last week, says, look, you're getting in the way of my campaign. Is Mr. Kasich a spoiler, and should he drop out?
I'm laughing. I've always wanted my opponents to drop out, but that's not the way our system works. People have a right to enter an election and try to win it. And that's exactly what Governor Kasich's trying to do. And I think he has he's not going to have 1,200 and so many votes when he gets to the convention. I don't think any of the candidates are. And so as a result, the convention is going to have to, as I said earlier, make a couple, let's look back at the history too. Abraham Lincoln went to the convention probably a distant third or fourth in 1860. Teddy Roosevelt, who became president, beat the Democrat, went to the convention way behind in votes, but nobody won on that first round in both those instances, and the convention delegates chose who they thought would be the best candidate to represent their party and the best candidate to govern the country, and both those candidates were elected. So I'm very optimistic that Governor Kasich has a good shot, and firmly believe that he's the best candidate.
Mayor Bradford, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, Raphael.
Our thanks to you both. The campaign giving us plenty to talk about with our political insiders, and we're going to do that next right here on Indianapolis This Week on RTV6. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week to talk about the presidential race. Our political insiders are here. Democrat Adam Kirsch, Republican Pete Seat, who is moonlighting on CNN, MSNBC. I think I saw you on the Cartoon Network this week. We'll talk about the race in a second, but let's look at a couple of numbers really quick just to show you why Indiana is so critical going forward. Current delegate count, Donald Trump with 845. He, of course, needs 1237 to win on a first ballot. Ted Cruz and John Kasich cannot get to that number now, only get enough to force a contested convention. And here's what's at stake here in Indiana. 57 total delegates for the Republicans, including 30 to the person who wins the statewide vote. The other 27 divided up, 3 to the winner in each of the state's 9 congressional districts. So there's the Republican race by the numbers. You are both insiders, so let's get inside this race. Pete, let's start with you. Just how close is this Republican race right now in Indiana with 9 days to go?
Well, I think it's probably closer than people realize, but in the end, I suspect all 3 candidates are going to get delegates because we have the hybrid process that you just talked about, where you can get delegates at the congressional district level. The big question is who will get those at-large delegates, whether it'll be Trump or Cruz. Likely, I think they're probably leading the pack right now, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for John Kasich in all this as well.
Across the aisle, Adam, just how close is that race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders? 9 days to go.
Well, we saw the Howey poll come out just the end of the week, and it's close. It's within the margin. The fundamental truth of the Democratic side is since all the states are proportional allocation, somebody's going to come up with 1 or 2 more delegates than the other candidate. I think it will be Hillary Clinton, but who knows?
And is that why Indiana just simply doesn't matter as much to the Democrats as it does to the Republicans right now?
Indiana doesn't matter as much because Hillary Clinton's delegate lead now is actually bigger than Barack Obama's ever was in the 2008 cycle. She's basically got an insurmountable delegate lead. People want to talk about, oh, that counts superdelegates. Yes, it counts all of the delegates. But it's just a matter of time.
So this race is essentially done for the Democrats at this point. That's your contention.
And actually, Indiana, depending on how it falls, Hillary Clinton can actually get the requisite number to win the nomination in Indiana.
We'll get back to Pete in a second. He's had plenty of airtime this week across the cable networks.
Take it all.
If you're Hillary Clinton, which of these 3 Republican candidates do you most want to face come November?
I think Hillary Clinton will take anybody they nominate. I think it's going to be Donald Trump or Ted Cruz.
All right, Pete. Let's get back to you now. On the Republican side of things, what did you see and hear out of Donald Trump and Ted Cruz this week that maybe you didn't expect or you did expect as they came to Indiana?
Well, I think the big news that came out of Donald Trump was that his pivot to the general election lasted 12 hours, where he called Ted Cruz Senator Cruz after the New York victory, but went back to calling him Lion Ted here in Indiana. With Cruz, what was striking to me, I was at the Indiana Republican Party dinner Thursday night, was just how subdued the response was. It was very polite, it's very respectful, but it wasn't the response I think Ted Cruz is used to. Talking about immigration and how we need to fix our immigration system did not get the hoots and hollers I'm sure he gets out on the stump. But people were kind. It just didn't seem like it was the room that was geared to his message. But I think he's going to go out wherever he can around the state to try and find people that are more receptive to it.
Donald Trump and Ted Cruz both sitting down with Governor Pence this week. Does he come out in the next 9 days and endorse either one of them before the primary?
I don't see what he gains from it. I mean, he's got an election fight of his own to worry about. He needs to make sure that Republicans stay unified for his race, and I don't see how turning off let's say 2/3, by supporting one of the candidate and not the other two-thirds of the voters helps him at all.
Adam, what are all these candidates doing over the next 9 days to try to get Hoosiers out to the polls and to vote for them, of course?
I'm more familiar with the Democratic side, shockingly. And we've seen their Clinton surrogates appearances scheduled. Bernie's, I believe, coming, and it's been rumored, but both have set up offices and staff and are doing the traditional on-the-ground campaigning.
Last question for you, Pete. Does a Republican need to win Indiana? Does Trump need to win Indiana in order to lock down the nomination before the convention in July?
Oh, yeah. We are going to make or break it for him, and whether or not there's going to be a second ballot. We are, the extended pit stop on the way to a second ballot, and, the Washington Post reported that this is likely the last moment for the Never Trump movement. If they think they can stop him on first ballot, Indiana is the place to make it happen.
Last question for you both. One-word answer. Who wins Indiana for the Republicans? Adam?
Trump.
Pete?
Cruz.
Wait and see what happens on May 3rd. Of course, join our political insiders right now through our official Twitter account at Indy This Week. Plus, get news and updates every day of the week. We'll be right back.
Hope you are having a fantastic Sunday. Storm Team 6 meteorologist Kyle Mounts here with you. We've got great weather for the second half of your weekend, all the way to 77 this afternoon with lots of sunshine. Check out those temperature extremes for this time of year. Record low 28, record high 90 degrees. So, of course, we're not going to be messing with either of those records this year. 76 your high in Tipton, 77 in Crawfordsville. Bit of a southerly breeze at 10 miles per hour, but that gets you close to 80 in Bedford at 78 degrees, 76 in Shelbyville, and middle 70s around Plainfield and Greenfield, both coming in at the 76-degree mark. Then this evening, heading out for a walk, maybe after grilling dinner outside. Perfect night for all of that. We'll have temperatures that fall about 10 degrees between 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock this evening, but we are still in the lower 60s at that point. Overnight low of 57 will increase the clouds and a high of 80 on Monday, and then rain chances developing as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Welcome back. Carrier certainly playing a key role in the presidential campaign here in Indiana, and as it does, we want to make sure that you hear the stories of the people losing their jobs. We've launched an unprecedented look at Carrier's decision and its impact. Exclusive stories from those employees. You can see the first of those episodes right now at our website, theindychannel.com. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Indianapolis This Week. For Raphael, Katie, and our entire team, have a fantastic Sunday, everyone.